Make sure I press record. All right. So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ashley M. Jones, and I'm the Executive Director of the Magic City Poetry Festival. We're so grateful to have you here with us today as we officially begin our 2021 virtual festival. I'd like to thank our sponsor, PEN America, and the PEN America Birmingham chapter. And I'd like to thank those who have supported us through your own individual donations as well. Our mission is to deliver free and engaging poetry programming to the greater Birmingham area and beyond, while also compensating all featured artists, and all kinds of support help to make that possible. I'd also like to thank our amazing board of directors for their hard work and dedication to make this festival happen, even in a pandemic, even virtually. I'm deeply grateful for Dr. L. Lamar Wilson, Alina Stefanescu, Laura Secord, Monique Jones, and Shantika Curry for being such forces of good and for their spirit of collaborative success. I'd also like to thank all of our featured artists throughout the month for sharing their time and talents with our audience. We're so excited for this month's events, and you can check out all that we're offering this month on our website, www.magiccitypoetryfestival.org, which I will link in the chat. We'd also like to let you know that the official bookstore of the festival is Thank You Books, which is a beautiful, independent, and woman-owned bookstore in Birmingham, Alabama. You can buy all the festival books from their website or in store. Their book page will also be linked in the chat in just a moment. If you purchase a copy of today's guest speaker's book, which I should have right next to me, but it's not here right now. Anyway, if you buy HoodWitch from their store, you actually can get a signed book plate. So it's as if you would have been able to meet Faylita and they would have signed it for you live. So you can get that from Thank You Books exclusively. And Thank You Books is a staple in our local literary community. And now with the age of technology, you can actually support them from anywhere, from any state. You can purchase books online and they deliver them all across the nation. They also, if you're in town and you don't want to make contact with any other people, they do have a contact-free pickup for your online orders as well. We also have enabled today the automated captions or subtitles. You can hide those if you would like to, if they are distracting to you in any way, but we would like to keep those up just for those who need it for accessibility purposes. As I mentioned today, it's our opening of the 2021 festival, and it is our festival's tradition to begin on April 4th, or in the case of this year, April 3rd, because tomorrow is Easter, with what we call the MLK Day of Remembrance. As we know, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated on April 4th, 1968, in Memphis, Tennessee. We know that he was surveilled and terrorized by the FBI and other white citizens, and we want to take this day to reflect on the ways in which the struggle for civil rights continues in our area and beyond, and to explore the ways in which the arts, poetry specifically, work as a part of many activism efforts. To that end, we are so honored to host Faylita Hicks today as our guest speaker. Faylita will be introduced by MCPF Director of Community Engagement, Laura Secord, and they will give a reading of about 35 to 40 minutes, followed by a Q&A, which will be moderated by Laura and by me. Please also note that the chat is open and it can be used for affirmations and reactions to the poems. And the Q&A feature will be used for the submission of questions. Any inflammatory chats or hate speech will cause for immediate removal, will be cause for immediate removal from the program. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Laura Secord to introduce our guest speaker.
Welcome. Welcome to the Magic City Poetry Festival and to the MLK Day of Remembrance. And I personally am super excited today about our speaker. Faylita Hicks was a co-student of mine at Sierra Nevada College. When I first heard them on the mic, my jaw dropped and I had the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I was so knocked out. And I discovered more though, than besides that she was a knockout poet, I discovered that she had with great determination and resilience faced many different challenges and just kept shining. So I was I was so impressed with her as an individual and as someone who cared about her fellow students and gave them great and thoughtful advice and great and thoughtful comments. So I have continued to follow her success since she finished Sierra Nevada University. And I'm so excited, I can't speak. Faye is known as a queer Afro-Latinx activist. She's a writer and an interdisciplinary artist. She is living in Central Texas. She was the editor-in-chief of Borderlands, the Texas Poetry Review. She's been a touring artist, and she recently released her book, HoodWitch, which I have a copy of, and it is incredible. I so encourage you to purchase this book. It touches on so many aspects of life as a Black, queer, Afro-Latina activist. And it's very touching and moving, and I adore it. So I really encourage you to buy it. They have also been a finalist in the Lambda Literary Award for Bisexual Poetry. They've won the Balcones Poetry Prize and the 2019 Julie Suk Award. And recently won the Palette Poetry's 2020 Sappho Prize, has been awarded a number of fellowships and residencies. And this is very exciting, and this is new and not in her bio. They recently were named the Civil Rights Corps' 2021 Poet in Residence because of their activism surrounding issues of money bail and incarceration in this country. Also appears in a Brave New Films documentary called Racially Charged, America's Misdemeanor Problem. Faylita's work has been anthologized in The Long Devotion, Poets Writing About Motherhood, and also has been featured in Adroit, American Poetry Review, Cincinnati Review, Friction, HuffPost, Kenyon Review, Long Reads, Palette Poetry, Poetry Magazine, The Rumpus, Slate, Texas Monthly, Texas Observer, Vita Review, and so many other places. I follow her essays, and they are amazing. I would just like to tell you to get comfortable in your seat and be ready for an amazing time with Faylita Hicks. Mwah! Faylita, go for it.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Laura and Ashley. Yeah, I want to make sure I don't take away the joy that is, being able to win a prize for your book. I did not win the Balcones Prize, and I did not win the Julie Suk Award, but I was a finalist, a shortlisted finalist. So yay for the shortlisted finalists, and congratulations to the winners of those prizes. Yeah, I have poems for you. I have excerpts from my memoir that I'm working on for you. I have put a couple of links into the chat for you as well. The misdemeanor film is something that I'm especially proud of, and I'm hoping that more people get a chance to see it. It features several people, including a linebacker from the New Orleans Saints, who all of us are talking about are misdemeanors that resulted in arrest or fines and that upended our lives. And we look at the whole entire history of misdemeanors in America and see the direct link between slavery and misdemeanors today, and how many people that we know as those big hashtag names who died for misdemeanors, for walking across the street, for the potential of a $20 bill to be fake, for sitting in your car. There are a lot of things to note about that. And so I do want to put that notice out there before you watch it. It is very emotional. So yeah, just consider that before you do that there. Okay, now let's go into I'm trying to do this number here. It won't let me do that, will it? Let's just read poems. The first few poems I'm going to read for you are from my book. And then I'm going to read you some poems that are not from my book, aka they are hopefully in the new book. And then I'm going to read some poems that will be in my memoir. Okay, let's do this. It's not letting me. The screen's doing weird things. Okay. The first poem I want to read for you is Tender. One of the first ways I learned how to advocate was when I was trying to advocate for myself and my body, right? That's where advocacy starts, is for ourselves. And if we can learn how to do that for ourselves, then we can learn how to do that for others. And so I'm going to start kind of at the very beginning of that. Tender. The blonde Uber driver with my address, name, and number. The bare-faced bohemian barista with my name and number. The slickly coiffed bachelor posing on the bar waiting for my number, the distinguished professor dangling a network of names and numbers, the educated brother from Howard U crossing the sands in dripping numbers, the fox of a boy dragging denim skins around his ankles hollering, give me that number, the father, daddy just out of lockup today with my number, the woke sis with the detachable dick who straight up took my number, the Christ-whipped child of heaven who straight up took my number, the crooning coward, a hooded siren staring into the soft beginnings of names and numbers. May you ocean of fleas finally be dusted with a lifetime of reckonings. And so that was kind of, at one point in my life, I realized just how many people had my number and had my name and could find me at any given time, and how terrifying that is in a country that does not protect the Black femme body, that does not protect the Black femme queer body. How frightening that is, that everywhere you turn, that there are people who may hurt you. This next poem is actually the first poem in the first section of the book. The book is broken up into 4 sections. If you at all know anything witchy, you might recognize that we represent water, earth, fire, and air in each of the sections. So yeah, the first rite of water opens up with this poem, Wolf, which is not just about one person, but about multiple people who I know who have experienced this, myself included, and how, this is a warning for content, how certain events completely change you when it comes to sexual assault. And how, again, this is one of the first places that we learn about advocacy as the queer femme. So, Wolf. I found her naked, arms wrapped around a photo of us, candle wax in the carpet, shards of light cutting into her brown skin. Last night, the walls bled. God came up in the house, she said, was in our adjusted periphery, and in her legs, dropped a drum in her. She a wolf now. She say, she full of brooms and weapons now, sweats like a pit bull. She can smell the shit on me now. She says, I finally found a way out the carpet. I finally found a way to clean the blood out the carpet. Gets down on all fours, starts licking. She says, I witch now. Can't nobody break what's already broken, and I'm all ivory now. She warned me to get gone. She can see the devil itch in a man's skin now. She say, they gonna know I'm a beast now. My sister has got a new video online of her panting. Touch me again and I will tear this motherfucker down. And so in my book, it opens up with a poem about a college student who is witchy, who loses their life, and in losing their life, they become something even more. They become something larger, something that can take revenge, that can take power back, however you want to interpret that. And that thing that they turn into is God, G-A-W-D. And God is a much more righteous God for the queer Black femme that says, you know what, I am angry and I am Black, but beyond the trope, I have a real good reason to be angry, and I have a real good reason to be this mad. you have done something to me, and I didn't let that be the last thing that happened. In fact, I became back and I got more power from it. And so that's kind of what happens very often in this book, is that we see Black women experience something and then be transformed by it. I think I'm going to read just a couple more poems from this one, and then I'm going to hop into some new poems. Yeah, I'm going to read The Birth Mother's Red Bath for Courage because it's one of my favorite poems. It's a true poem. I am a birth parent, if you don't know. And as a birth parent, there's this very interesting moment that happens directly after the birth, in which you are left alone for the first time. And I wrote this poem about that moment when I, first realized, it first kind of set into me that there was someone that I created, and that someone that I created would no longer be with me. And, there is grief in that. I am very happy about my decision, and I am very encouraged by the parents. They're amazing people. But there is that grief that happens, and it's not, it's for both. It's for the birth parents, both the birth the father and the parent, it's both sides. But this was my first moment of grief. And yeah, The Birth Mother's Red Bath for Courage. With spoiled milk seeping from its many small brown mouths, my body twitched loose, the dead skin snaked around it, dripped runes in the doorway, heaved bullet after bullet into the tub, but did not die. There are claw marks and hot grease stains where things came through. Signature survival signs etched around my belly, at the hinge, in the crevices, all of it evidence I did give birth to something. There was a killing here of a kind. Something is lost now, forced from a room in me. Something is stifled in this body. I have become a deconstructed basket of rose-colored towels singing on the hospital's floor. Some nights, I think this body must still be calling out to the child that tore through it, are trying to forgive itself, forgiving itself over to the strange and inconvenient truth that not all mothers are mothers. Some mothers are war, an enemy of their own desires. Some mothers are graveyards, a field of want, buried beneath other fields of want. Some nights I think this body must still be praying to a God that has long since slithered away. So you see, throughout this book, you'll see that the theme of motherhood, and you'll see me go between girl and girl GIRL to girl GXRL, or woman WOMAN to woman WOMXN. And the important thing to know about that is that there is a time where I identified purely as a Black woman, and times where I started having those questions about, but am I just that, or am I more? And as a non-binary femme, what that means to me is that there's a whole spectrum, and on that whole entire spectrum where I could be a man or a woman, or it could be trans or not trans, I am somewhere a little bit closer to the femme. And so I identify closer to the femme, but you can't just put me in that one category. And so I'm on the spectrum. And that's what this book was trying to explore, is that spectrum. I think there's still room to grow there in that questioning. But even me writing this book and saying, hey, I'm on the spectrum, is again advocacy for the self. I'm going to get into advocacy for the community, but I wanted to point that out. The last one I'm going to do for this book is the title, the titular poem, as people like to say, the titular poem. I just like it because it says titular poem. Photo of X, again, Photo of X, 2007, HoodWitches, somewhere. Hashtag hallelujah to the HoodWitches. To the shellac clapbacks and neck roll snaps of sisters who snatch tracks and dodge ditches. Hashtag blessed be to they two small kitchens. Blessed be they Dollar Tree gumbo. Blessed be they Cokes and hot Cheetos. May the God smile down and rain money on some of us. Bitches. Hashtag I'm different. Descended from the truth eaters. I swallowed Sarah Hardy Bartman. She buried herself in the slips of my hips, and now she lives in all the mirrors of my apartment. Now she pats me on the belly and begs for me to feed her, so I search me out them rude boys, you know, those thick two-headed oxmen. Cook me up some fine soup, roast sweet potatoes on parchment, and then I sucks me down the ox tails. Girl, I cost them. Hashtag hallelujah to the hood witches. To the snapbacks and double daps of queens gone pedestrian. Hashtag blessed be to their children's children. May the God smile down and watch over the black naps and snatchbacks of black women dragged into the system. Of black women survived outside the system. Of black women survived despite the system. Hashtag ashe, ashe to my sisters gone missing. To our mamas and grandmamas, our daughters and granddaughters. Hashtag ashe, ashe to the crowned and uncrowned. To those above and below ground. Hashtag Black girl magic is real. Hashtag Black women matter. You know we do. And whenever I say it, I mean hashtag me too. So that is the very last poem, and it had to be the last poem because it's full of hashtags, which normally come at the end. And there are so many hashtags that have had a long impact on my life. And I'm obsessed with how they have changed the scope of what's possible for so many. And I think that it's important to note that so many of the biggest hashtags for social justice were started by Black femmes. Period, point blank. That's all I had to say about that. And so it made sense to honor that in particular in this book, and to make sure that obviously we have so many other people in our family that we worry about, but the Black femme does not get all the praise that the Black femme needs. So that's that. Let's get into more poems. I'm trying to be conscious of time. Actually, yeah, just let me know when I'm getting close on time here. We're gonna go through a quick rendezvous through my work in progress. I'm thinking about putting up a Patreon so that more people can see the work in progress and just kind of see how my brain works a little bit. This is from a new book that I'm working on. Hopefully it'll be called Flowers in the Field of Terror. And it's supposed to kind of honor the people who are previously incarcerated, previously detained, the family members of those people, the people who are in the community who had to witness murder happen in the streets at the hands of the government officials. This is meant to say, I see you, and uplift those who especially have experienced that and now are working in the field. I know a number of people who spent time, months or years in detainment or in jails and prisons, who are now advocating for others, who are doing that hard work day in and day out of trying to heal themselves and heal their community and help individuals. And it's extremely hard. And I think that that's yes, we definitely want to uplift all people who have experienced being locked in a cage, but I also want to honor those who are doing the hard work of going back into the field and saying, I can't stop now, right? They're all Harriet Tubmans in some fashion or form. It's like, I came out and now I gotta go get everybody else. So this, the poem that I'm working on right now was actually inspired by a prompt that I got from a magazine that will feature several of the portraits that I've done. They're digital art pieces. And I'll put the link and that Ecotone is going to have that published hopefully soon. It features, again, directly previously incarcerated people who are now in the field doing work, as well as photos of myself and the different things that have impacted my life. And so this series of sequences It's called How to Burn the Fields and Bring Back the Crops, which is kind of about, it's a technique that was used to make soil more fertile again. And it seems it's a violent way to make the soil fertile again. But I wanted to talk about what it means what does it mean when people who are advocating for their communities go out and burn things down, right? What does that mean? And what are we doing? And in some ways, when I see, police stations on fire, when I see cars overturned, what I see is making room for new things to grow. And so that's kind of where that thought is coming from. All right, so this is one of the sequences. The sequences are very, very long, so I'm only going to choose a couple of them. This is from sequence 2, Burn. In San Marcos, Texas, I'm in la lucha con mis hermanas porque this city is a river of college students destined to be swallowed by the rural expanse of the Guadalupe. Let me just start that over again. I was trying to rush it. In San Marcos, Texas, I'm in la lucha con mis hermanas porque this city is a river of college students destined to be swallowed by the rural expanse of the Guadalupe. After another deportation, after another unnecessary arrest and protesta, we float outside of the federal building where I too was buried in la lucha against the waves of the recently shipped, the waves of the soon to be drowned, and the waves of white faces swimming in and out of the front doors. And this war of mar y sol, we are largemouth bass, our tongues flipping back and forth between dos idiomas porque what happens to our people happens to us, and what happens to us happens to our people. We are all still living at the intersection of legal and barely legal. In Texas, we know the words to NWA's Fuck the Police. When we meet up at Buzzmill's 24-hour bar after the rally, after the county commissioner's court denies us the public defender's office for the 3rd year in a row, we put it on replay. Chinga la policía, chinga la migra, chinga la policía, chinga la migra, chinga la policía. We are a festival of the county's most wicked, dancing, drinking, and chanting long after the music stops playing. A Texas Parks infomercial explains that the lavender orchid vine survives into the low 20s. It can recover, even if frozen to the ground. This is all I needed to know, so I turn off the 24-hour news coverage with its static videos of me and the others, indignant Black women from yesterday's rally, some in our 20s, pacing outside of Governor Abbott's mansion, calling for parolees to be freed. At the rally, the large braids and straight backs of us Black women were bracketed by the fences of the Capitol's manicured grounds, our N95 mask dermis tagged in the nettled dialects of our dead. Some of us wanted our husbands back, and not in body bags. Others wanted to know in how many ways could we be murdered before we were allowed to be galled. I wanted to know if there was anything I could do to change the governor's mind. It was a familiar scene. So like so many others, there were mothers there at the mansion, but there are always mothers there with their chins shattering under sobs. And there are still mothers there at the Parasol Immigrant Detention Center, 40 minutes away, shattering. In Austin, the people's heads floated over the photos of their children. In San Antonio, their heads still float over the heads of their children, now fallen flat and frozen to the ground. Here in San Marcos, the smoke follows me from my living room into my kitchen, from my kitchen into my bed, half asleep. I wonder if I-10 is a swallow of the unflowered, an inflorescence slivering through the meaty brown thigh of the Southwest, up the long black neck of Houston, and down through the empty womb of Corpus Christi. I wonder, is it true? Has the highway always been of violence, slowly severing us from our names? My name is my queer heritage. Hola, my name is, I text into 2020, into the borders between me and the summer that refuses to end. I asked the internet about Faye, not Feo. Find I am a fairy. How strange I giggle into the red cotton of the white girl from theater class. She nods and tickles my face. How strange. I whisper to her behind the hollow gray pylon in the middle of the stage and the middle of the high school play. How strange, the director says, when I miss my cue, when the others say my name, Faye. It is my mother's middle name. My middle name is my father's middle name. The names are the only inheritance I am assured, and yet deliver my last name. I call it my last shame, Hicks, the epitome of rape range. I trick my mouth into spitting out the truth at the open mic, and the crowd goes mild. No one knows what I mean when I say they forget from whence I came. From crude oil and butane, I can't help it. It's ingrained. No one knows, really knows, what it means to be a descendant of ash. One day, I might learn how to convert my body back into the sun. I will remember how to burn, to ache righteously and feast out on the open air, look at my mestizo mother and know that it was never enough for us to run from California's fires. The smoke followed us for years, got into the upholstery, yellowed the apartment's walls, is in everything I wear. Look at my mother. She will never unknow ardent violence. It follows her still, in and out of Nana's room, in and out of the house off Crenshaw, in and out of Los Angeles County, in and out of the state. No one in my family knows what a Richter scale is, but they all remember the shock and sway of the year my mother was made. They all know it rains every day of September. They all know where Nana's house used to stand, but no one will say why it's gone now. My mother, the breathing wound of her mother, is all that is left as evidence of an unnatural disaster, and she smells like singed Mexican fan palm, crafts a smile that sears like an angel's trumpet. She has taught me, is teaching me. We can never unknow the spectacle of our inherited fevers. Most times, the land doesn't heal. And I'm going to read the last sequence here, which is, yeah. I hope we're doing all right. Yeah, I'm just checking the notes here. Okay. So this is the one of the middle sequences. I'm just tearing a piece out of it because I want to use that as a bridge to the next thing I want to read to you guys. The sound of air whipping in through the church's door is followed by the sound of fajitas being rushed to the small folding table next to the altar. While we stand in line to eat, we can pray to photos of our dead, or thank the women who drove across town to get her prima's homemade tortillas. I whisper into 1991, into Long Beach, California. My name is Faye. It is less than 10 minutes before I am Fea. Su nombre es Fea. The whole class tickles my 6-year-old fists. The whole class teaches me how to pronounce my anger. Faylita. I bury bits of Valentine's salty marrow into every field I find along Highway I-10 West. The buttery slip of El Paso, still warm in the mouth of my 4-wheel drive. This state could never survive on bones alone. The land would always need someone to come back and feed it. This is why I go back to school. I get a job taking the census. I learn how to cast spells and clean knives. This is why I pack a duffel bag of thin spandex and tanks and black olive and desert coral colors, a pair of jeans from Walmart, a pair from Ross, a pair I've had since college, the Bible with my name engraved in gold, the Woodford Reserve, my boots, a pack of Camels, a gallon jug of water for me, a 24-pack of water for the unaccompanied, a cooler, a picture of the girl I gave away, a notebook with her name in it, a machete, and a fresh pack of lighters. Just enough to keep me from being arrested. Just enough to keep me from being killed. Enough to survive the 4-day journey from Texas back to the ocean. And so as you, what you are hearing is that I keep going back and forth between Texas and California. I was born in California, raised in Texas. I lived in other places, but those are primarily my 2 states. And there's a particular journey. I don't know if you've ever taken it, but I've taken it. The journey from Texas to California and back is through a number of deserts. And I think it's a beautiful drive, but it's a long drive. And it also has a lot of history in the Southwest with not only the incarceration of Black folks, but the incarceration and detention of people who are just trying to find safety, are people who are trying to make a better life for themselves by any means necessary. And the groups that I get a chance to work with, including Civil Rights Corps, Detention Watch Network, and several others, we understand that there is a very real connection between what's happening with migrant detention and what's happening with incarceration. You cannot talk about one cage without talking about the other cage that's directly related to it. In Texas, SB4 means that it's a law that won't allow us to protect people who are not official citizens of this country, even though they contribute to our economy, even though they have called this home from the day they were born. Yeah, lots of things on that. So that's my bridge. Now we're gonna get to a body of wild light. I think I'm still good on, got just a little bit of time here. I'm trying to grab all my poems really quickly for you guys. Everything, this is what happens when you have a lot of work in progress all at the same time. I am actively working on multiple projects, and I'm very excited to do that work. I'm very honored to be the poet in residence for Civil Rights Corps. It means that I get to write poems that will hopefully have a deep impact on policy directly, and that is something that has been a dream. That has been a dream for me, to be able to hopefully create something that will have a literal impact, right? Tangible, measurable impact on policy, on the local standard, hopefully on the national standard, right? And that is what we need right now. Pretty words are great, but if those pretty words could have even more of a purpose, then that's even better. And so that's what I'm working on, is trying to learn and understand policy. I got my master's degree in creative writing, and I'm trying to read like law, legislation and policy, and try to figure out, oh, so I can write policy. What does that mean for me to learn how to write the thing that could govern the community, and how could I impact that to make it safer for all of us? And so that's what I'm working on. This piece I'm going to read to you is an excerpt from a random chapter in my book. I won't tell you which one, that I'm working on, my memoir. It's called Light Year, and the memoir I'm working on is called A Body of Wild Light. I am trying to upend, if you guys have ever read Toni Morrison's Playing in the Dark, I'm trying to upend that standard of Black means bad and white means good. And A Body of Wild Light is one way for me to kind of talk about the connection with the universe, and how the most beautiful thing in the universe is the stars, is that, big, black, beautiful, glowing thing up there. And so, that's the only context you need for this. Light year. My brown body is covered in hundreds of swelling constellations, a lifetime's worth of scars. Hours after I was born, red-faced and blue-lipped, the first of my moons, as I like to call them, appeared as a black swirl on the back of my left arm. The one revolution later turned into dozens of hot black comets, sores I picked until they turned to leather. By the time I was 6 years old, a white woman in a gray suit had my name on a file that sat on top of her desk, my mother's phone number marked in blue ink beside our last known address. According to my mother, she refused to tell me to sit down or be still during the home visit. I ran on the top ridge of the couch from one arm to the other before toppling onto a glass coffee table at the end. You just bled and laughed, she says. Your skin was always marked up. The white woman from Child Services didn't return for at least 2 years. I have dozens of stories like this. Stories about how I fell into violence when no one was watching. But none are quite like the stories from the decade that made me a galaxy. Most of my scars are from bug bites, accidents, or allergies. Too many are from someone else's misplaced anger at my skin tone, or my attitude, or my vagina. The most extensive scars are the ones you have to be a medium or a therapist to see. the ones from my terror-filled days in tiny beige rooms with no heat, the ones from a jail cell the size of a rural Texas county, the ones from any number of bedrooms in Austin, Atlanta, Albuquerque, Baltimore, Columbus, Philly. I could go on. I'm made up of billions of misshaped scars, a body of anti-light. I have taken in the secrets of being a Black woman and buried them one by one into my limbs. From 2010 to 2020, I buried steadily. I burned, quietly at first, then progressively louder, like a bonfire or a gasoline-soaked police car. For most of my life, I have kept these stars to myself, hid the evidence of my burning behind closed doors and pretty poems about love and the living. But in the summer of 2020, months after the world was forced to retreat from normalcy, and just as our country was starting to come to terms with the undeniable presence of COVID-19, I, a beacon of Black light, suddenly gone erratic, blocked traffic with this precious body. It sounds extreme, but after years of running from the smoke of my Blackness, I slowed and stopped in the middle of downtown Austin on I-35. My body became a link between two other bodies, all of us surrounded by people of the same discord. That year is the year I left what was left of my apathy to become one of the many marching through the so-called civilized cities of America, hiking through the feverish streets tagged in smoke and blaze, with my head high and my voice hoarse from chanting. Morning after morning, I turned on the news and felt my hands begin to twitch, my fingers clenching, unclenching. That summer, I became a body of fury, an iteration of rage, a culmination of too many summers spent in mourning. I was activated and alive in these streets, too sure that there was no way they were going to put me down. I was, still am, my father's dark child. And that summer, every night felt like it was the night I could die. Black women are going to save us. This was the cry of relief that reverberated through the nation when Stacey Abrams and company stepped in and served up Georgia to the Democratic Party on a bespeckled blue platter in the 2020 presidential election. Conservatives, a group populated mainly by what a 2015 U.S. Census study has proclaimed as the growing minority, white men in North America, would disagree with this sentiment. Still, despite their unwanted opinions, Abrams will be remembered by history as the Black woman who begrudgingly opened the door for pro-cop Kamala Harris to step through and become the first ever Black/Asian American/woman vice president in the U.S. history. Historians will note that Abrams saved the nation from another frightening 4 years, during which the world's biggest crybaby would have most certainly activated a wellspring of disenfranchised Republicans, haphazardly causing what was sure to be another civil war via tweet. I'm confident that the Republicans who took up space in Congress during this historic election did not believe that our country's people, especially the Black people, needed a savior. In fact, many of them continued to find ways to blame Black women and men and all the impoverished and systematically deterred people who make up the growing majority for our own dire circumstances. Some of them even believe that the disparities we continue to experience reflect our moral ineptitude and not their violent legislation. Lately, Black women have been getting on their nerves. We've become so influential in modern society, we have begun to change everything from how people consume goods to how they participate in the democratic process. Our Instagram accounts instructing our followers to redirect their hard-earned dollars toward mission-driven small businesses owned by biopic people have swayed the market by the trillions, estimates a 2019 Nielsen report. Revolutionizing our regional communities via social media, our field organizing has flipped local elections more effectively than any of our predecessors. If we weren't dangerous already, we are now. Which is probably why every liberal or progressive organization, from philanthropists and the folks in the nonprofit sector to the conglomerates of the entertainment industry, have begun to literally buy into the notion of the Black woman's sanctity. In the last 5 years, more and more cash has been thrown into advertising that features Black femmes in power positions without actually hiring Black femmes to be in power positions. Black women, in their minds, possess this unmatched ability to inspire innovation, agitation, and disruption to traditional systems, all while simultaneously cultivating community healing through maternalistic intuitiveness and at a price so much lower than any of our competitors. As a Black woman, I appreciate the long overdue praise, but even if you were to pay me triple what you spent on your white cis male CEO, we still wouldn't be all good. Equity is a long haul of a bitch, and the US has got a lot of work to do if it wants to catch up. Black women will not be saving the world from itself, but we will, and have already begun to, start saving ourselves and our communities from the world. If this me first idea seems counterintuitive to you, I'll assume you've never had the safety card provided to someone. I'll assume you've never read the safety card provided to everyone on every airplane everywhere. The golden rule: put a mask on yourself first before helping someone else with theirs. Suppose this still feels like a big jump. In that case, imagine being dragged from your impoverished circumstances, thrown in front of a nonprofit's donors, and asked to share your most desperate and traumatic moments, only to then be compensated for your time and tears and expertise and store-bought cookies in a sandwich. Or imagine being asked to be the face of a significant policy initiative or outstanding community program that will change the world by someone who just received a six-figure grant that you helped write, only to be compensated with $1,000 stipend and a t-shirt. This happens all the time. Black women are game changers. But in this crash landing of a nation, before we can save the world, we must first save ourselves, our families, and our communities. What do people really mean when they say Black women will save us? Not all of us are in immediate physical danger, though you define immediate danger varies from income bracket to income bracket. Rural county to rural county, identity to identity. What does it mean that Black women will save the country? I think it means that Black women will somehow right historical wrongs, battle simultaneously misogyny and racism, finally exile police violence and medical malpractices, bring back the good old days of family cookouts, Southern charm, and the village community model, all while looking fly, keeping it real, and getting our nails did whenever we go to the salon around the way. Amen. When people say Black women will save us, what they really mean is Black women will do the work so many of us can't or won't do because it is complex and requires finesse and nuance. An unfortunate premise, Black women will save us, begs the Black woman to create, from thin air in some cases, a type of paradise that all can enter into. Reimagine a community where everyone feels seen and heard, where restoration is a daily event and radical love is as easy as baking a pie, baby. Black women will save us implies that Black women are never frail or broken, never sad or tired, superhuman even, when it comes to empathy and mindfulness. Marauders hunting down crooked politicians, pay-to-play legislators, and dirty lobbyists. Just throw us some red bottoms and we'll get you your man. The implications of Black women will save us refuse Black women their gentleness and soft parts, takes their sexuality and gender performance to the extreme, leaves out their fear or weariness, laughter, and brightness, and makes the Black woman a one-dimensional character in a country story where they are anything but. It took my whole life to finally see my fat Black body as a holy place I could always return to for healing whenever the world claimed my wisdom as their own and cast me out. It took all my 35 years to see myself as an oasis to which my sister friends might occasionally come to take their shoes off, grab some whiskey, and lean back in laughter, to know myself as a place of absolute power and creativity worthy of praise, respect, and uplifting, to let my body rest and relax. I've discovered my brown thighs, rubbed together until they were black, are a gorgeous resort for lovers to come check in, turn off their cell phones, and turn up the Jill Scott I got playing 24/7 in between them. Amen. I buried beneath a tall oak in Dallas, a daydream I fell in love with. His promise of forever rolls on and on under the untilled dirts of Texas. I flew to the shy, grew within myself a child stitched together like a prayer, so fine and bright, the world knew her name immediately. Her hungry mother and proud father named her Beautiful Dark Garden. I've been water ever since. But coming back to the heavenly origins of myself took too many trips to bloated cities in the midst of bleaching out the color that made them any woman's paradise. Took whole chapters of me dying over and over again in the beds and courts and jail cells and classrooms of North America. In fact, for me to finally find me a little relief, a little joy, I had to barter away the bits of my souls that kept looking backward, trying like Lot's wife to see exactly what about me kept going up in flames. But I'm no Otto, and Lot was an asshole, and I'm not a salty bitch, but I know it was the men in my state's capital with their assistants and wives still dangling heavily between their legs that tried to kill me with letter after black letter, line after red line, dollar after $20 bill. And sure, I've loved me my fair share of white men, of black women, of black men, of all kinds of people dug into where the roots grew and laid down for a time. But now I am no one's peace, no one's justice. America has made it so that I can't rest anymore. My fist always itches and my voice is hoarse. Now I wake up restless. I know, can feel it deep down in my yoni, that right now I am finally becoming what I was always meant to be, a body of wild light. And so that is an excerpt from my memoir that I'm working on. Hopefully it will it will be lots of things. The book is not scheduled to come out this year or next year or any year just yet. So cross your fingers. I read excerpts from it while I'm working on it, but we haven't taken it out yet, and so just send good vibes. Just send good vibes while we work on the things. That's my 2 cents. I did some meditating last night, and I have a friend who it's her birthday today, and she's going through a lot of things. So I won't go into the details of what's happening over there, but if you could also send her a great big hug into the space, hopefully she'll feel some of that energy. Sometimes we all need to be soft, and we all need to take some time for ourselves. And yeah, I just want her to know she's loved today. I have nothing else for you right now. Thank you so much for having me. We've gone all over the map.
Wow, thank you so much, Faylita. Everybody in your homes, please clap. That was fantastic. Oh my gosh, I cannot wait for that book. We are speaking it into publication as soon as it is ready. Wow. And y'all, I found my book just in case y'all wanted to see it. It was right there next to me. But if you order from Thank You Books, you will get this beautiful signed book plate from Faylita. So please place your orders today for this amazing book. And of course, also sending those good vibes to your friend and to you and to anyone out there who needs them. We do believe that poetry is also the act of love. So we are sending that out to you. So at this time, Laura and I are here with you to start the Q&A. And we actually have one question that came in from Facebook. Special thanks to our social media coordinator and Secretary Monique Jones, aka my big sister, for running our Facebook as well. And the question that came in was from the Poetry Festival's eco poet, Salem Green. Salem says, "Thank you for sharing your power and your truth. Could you share more about your workshops and in what ways you process trauma and terror?" Beautiful work.
All right. So, oh man, I did have a workshop called Flowers in a Field of Terror, which is where that idea for that title comes through. And my goal for that workshop have been to try to find the tender pieces that we all need, because this has been constant terror on all of us for the last 12 plus months, and trying to identify how to find beauty in that and find hope in between is something that I think we all need. The next workshop that I'm doing is called Justice Now, which is supposed to be the follow-up to Flowers in a Field of Terror. And the idea is not necessarily to worry about the man, right? The man gets too much energy. I don't want to fight the man anymore. He got too much energy. What I do want to think about is what our potential futures are, right? What does it mean for me to really change my community, make it safer? What does that look like? And can I put it into tangible words and outcomes? And so that's something we'll be exploring. We'll take actual headlines from whatever's happening that week and find a way to subvert that. Like, okay, when I see this headline, how else can I think about what I can do? Even if I'm not in the streets, even if I'm not a part of a grassroots organization, even if I'm not advocating, you know, in front of a judge or anything like that, or county commissioner's court or whatever, how can I have an impact on my community? Through poems, right? So that's something that we'll be exploring. I am going to give the little disclaimer that that workshop is still up in the air as far as where it'll be hosted. Hopefully I'll have an answer for you as far as where that will be hosted in the next week. But yeah, got to advocate at all times in all spaces. And that includes, you know, where you host things. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Please do share that when you have it so we can share with all of our friends here in Birmingham. That sounds like such an amazing workshop. And just to like co-sign something that you said, I've been thinking a lot about the ways that all of us can be involved. I think too often when we study the struggle, we get this idea that only certain things are what's helping, but all of us are needed everywhere. I'm a teacher, so I have to show up in the classroom as well. I have to show up as a poet. I have to show up as a family member. Everywhere I go, I have to show up. All of us are needed. So just again,
because it's the misconception is that only the person who's on TV in the front row with the sign and the bullhorn is the guy doing the things. And I said guy because normally that's what you see. But the fact is, like, almost every single major person in leadership throughout this entire country has at some point quoted a writer, has at some point quoted an artist. Right? Their homes are filled with visual art that inspires them or motivates them or makes them feel present. Their music, you know, they're listening to sounds and music that's created by these artists that make them feel something or that brings them back to, you know, some sort of memory. They have to learn from somebody. I saw a post the other day where they were like, tell us the first time you saw your first Black male teacher. Right? It matters when you show up in every single space, just as you are. And that, you know, it's hard work. I know that, like, I have a hard time. My family is literally all across the country. We're all spread out. And even then I have to constantly learn how to be present, right? For my family. And it's hard because there's all that stuff that comes with it. How can you be hard and how be present, and how can you also advocate for yourself in every occasion? And that's a practice, and you're not supposed to know how to do it already. That's something we have to learn. So don't feel bad that you don't know how to do that. No one knows how to do that. We're all figuring it out together. So
Faye, one of our questions was about the poem, Black Women Can Save Us. If that had been published in any literary journals or anything like that, because everyone is so excited to actually see that. So if it hasn't been sent out, I don't know. I think it needs to be. So, because I know the book hasn't been published yet, but so many people wanted to know. And then we have another question from the same person, Sarah Silvernall, who says, what poets do you love to read?
Yeah, so the last piece that I wrote is not a poem. That is actually a nonfiction piece. So that's an excerpt from a longer nonfiction piece about lots of things. That is up in the air. Is all I can say. I have this wonderful thing that I've been wanting for my entire life. It's called an agent. And we have a plan. And I'm very appreciative of that, because sometimes it's hard to find people who will help you advocate for yourself better, and help you advocate for your work better. And that's what I'm learning right now. I know that it may look like I know what I'm doing. I don't. I'm learning right now how to advocate for myself better. And so that work will come into the world when it's ready to come into the world. That's what I'm going to say about that piece. The second question is, what poets do I love to read? Huh. You guys can't see because it looks like there's just like a desk here, but my entire desk is covered in books. So Audre Lorde for sure. I have, it's funny, most of my poetry thing is actually nonfiction. I like reading nonfiction to inspire my poems. James Baldwin is someone that I absolutely love. I do love Ocean Vuong. Man, Ocean Vuong, the meditative qualities that are in lots of the pieces. Natalie Diaz, it's just gorgeous. Just gorgeous writing. I have a big crush on Natalie. I feel like I admit that every few days. I do really enjoy Claudia Rankine. I'm just looking at my deal here. One thing I will say is that there are a lot of authors and poets who I really looked up to who have over time, we have to all hold each other accountable. And, since life has happened, I've found that I have to hold them accountable as well, even though I love their work. So I'm not going to list those names. I love Patricia Smith. Patricia Smith, I knew of Patricia first as a spoken word artist, and I followed that path, right? I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I have to do that. And then when Patricia really started publishing and doing all the colleges and things, I was like, I have to do that. And so I followed Patricia Smith across the country until I was in an MFA program with Patricia Smith. And when I got my MFA, she was the one who presented my MFA to me. And so I was just like, yeah, one day there is a Medium post that lists the books that inspired HoodWitch. So if you go to my Medium, Faylita Hicks, I don't know what it's under right now, but if you go to Faylita Hicks on Medium and you scroll, there will be one of the articles is all the books that inspired HoodWitch.
And I will say that I've read a lot of the things on Medium. They're really good. So I encourage you to look at it. You can get a lot from that. And I wanted to ask you a question since I don't have another question. Yesterday, we had a little pre-meeting and you were talking about the power of poetry to change law. And I'd love you to share the story of how that happened in a small way locally with you.
Yeah. So in Texas, we have a list of, and this isn't true in every state, we have a list of charges that are misdemeanors that are citation eligible. What that means is that you can receive a citation for this charge without going straight to jail. A lot of people don't know that you can be given a citation for having a blunt in the state of Texas. You do not have to go straight to jail for having a blunt in the state of Texas. However, many officers will attempt to take you to jail for a blunt. They will try to make it, they will try to keep you there because what happens is every time you go to jail and you sit there, they get to report that back to the county. They get to report that back to the state and say, look, we're keeping all these people in here. We need more money because this is all full. We need more money. And so that's kind of what they end up doing, is arresting people when they really don't need to. So I'm just looking for the link to the documentary. Actually, can I show the intro to this documentary?
Sure.
I'm going to show you the intro to this documentary that I was in. It was published on ITVS. It is called 45 Days in a Texas Jail, which is about my story. And in the very opening scene, you'll see that I am walking into an event with a Black man. Ooh, here, sorry. Let's get the share screen on. Guys didn't know you were coming to see a documentary, did you?
But we love it.
All right, if I can just get this share screen going. There we go. Oh, let me make sure I can share sound. I'm guessing you can see my, can you guys hear this?
Okay, we can, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's my city councilman.
Faylita Hicks, inmate 858563. Housing assignment unknown. I'm stuck here. Room spin, call out, say, God, what you got against me? Say, God, what have I done? What have I done to deserve this? It sounds incredible to a lot of people. How can you spend 45 days in jail for $25 in groceries? May 7th. Another girl gets to leave today. I'm not able to call anyone. I don't have any phone numbers memorized. I wish I could say that I was leaving. I'm ready to go. I don't come from a background that has access to information about financial literacy. I don't come from a background that has.
So I'm going to go ahead and stop that there, but it is available on the YouTubes. As you can see, I just went to YouTube and pulled that up. But that first scene shows Mark Rockymore, who was my city councilman at the time. And Mark Rockymore is a poet. And he was a local poet in my town who hosted a regular open mic. And I was working with the nonprofit Mano Amiga, and we were trying to figure out how we were going to really engage our city council people in our effort to get a policy changed that would prevent officers from taking people straight to jail for citations eligible options. And it was called the Cite and Release. The Cite and Release piece was the name of the legislation. So we had been trying to get him to commit to doing more work for this site, for this piece of legislation. And finally I went to one of his opens mics, and I was like, I'm going to your open mic. I'm going to sit here. I need you to remember I too am a poet. And we are going to do these poetry things. So I read my poems at his open mic, and we had a great talk afterwards, and found some common ground to kind of set up accountability there for each other, about engaging the rest of the city council in making this decision. And then, as you can see, when he walks in with me, you'll see it later in the film, but he actually opened up for me at this event, reading his own poems, because he too had spent time in a Hays County jail. And so he read his poems, and then I read my poems, and I read pieces of paper that I was writing poems on the back of paper while I was in jail. And so I had all my original documents from me sitting in jail, and I was just reading straight from those without edits. I was just like, here's all the paper that I had, and here's the shit I wrote on the back of. And so it was a creative way to engage my city councilman and to make that bridge, a personal bridge, which was needed in order for us to help this legislation pass. It was voted on in late 2019. It became official in May 2020, which, to note why that's significant, is because I went to jail for 45 days in the Hays County jail for $25 in groceries in May of 2010. So 10 years later, an exact 10 years later, they passed the Cite and Release law in the city of San Marcos. It's the first of its kind in the state, where it's mandated that officers have to give people citations for citationable eligible offenses and not take them straight to jail for it. So yeah, it was a big emotional moment for everybody. Of course, we were in the middle of a pandemic, so we couldn't really go out and party and celebrate that. But it was definitely the moment that I just realized how much creative work could do. My work with Civil Rights Corps, I am hoping to interpret literal policy and make it easy for folks to understand. Because if you understand how policy impacts every single day of your life, you're going to be more willing to stand up and say something about it, right? And so that's what I hope to do, and that's what I hope to encourage other people to do. Because the way I say it may not come across to some folks. Maybe you got a better way of saying it that will help other people to understand. So,
it's just a brilliant story of the power of poetry.
Yeah.
When you take a risk and say your truth and say it to the people that need to hear it. So I thank you so much for that, for sharing that with us today.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. It's so inspiring for me as well, just thinking about the power that my work or any of our work could actually have on real lives. I mean, we've seen some of it in the work that we've done, Laura and I and others. But to hear that actual policy like was changed, like that does something, you know. And we're in an election cycle here in Birmingham, and we have some candidates who we need to reach. So maybe we'll take to poetry to getting ourselves heard in that.
I mean, I would even cite Kimon Felix, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kimon Felix works with Elizabeth Warren, and there was definitely a poetic connection there. So when Kimon did really great, I think she got I can't remember if she won the award or not for the National Book Award.
Yeah, I think
she won.
I think she did.
Yeah. Okay. So she won. But you have to know that her work was impacting Elizabeth Warren's work, and that she was, as an advisor, like, you know, giving feedback that was really critical. And that, to be honest, her platform, Kimon Felix's platform as a poet, helped more people to feel connected to Elizabeth Warren as the politician. Because when Elizabeth Warren first came out, I was not about Elizabeth Warren. But I was like, you know what? This poet is really thinking and doing that work. And not just that poet, but several other folks who were, you know, co-signing for Elizabeth Warren. I was like, okay, I can get on board. I understand that the thinkers have thought about this, and that if they can see that this is potential, then all right, I can support that. So, yeah.
Great. Well, I think there's one last question that was also from Susan Silvernail. And Susan just wanted to know if you could speak about your writing process. And I would extend that. I would love to know about moving between poetry and nonfiction, if you find that difficult, or if there's any strategies, or just whatever you want to say about that.
Yeah, I do too much. No, that's true. But so when I write poems, for the most part, they're not based off of prompts. It's more like I'll see a headline and I'm just like, you said what with what? And I have to respond to said headline. Or there are things that keep coming up. Like my fiance's name was Ray Allen Courtney Jr., and he passed away in April of 2010, which was a month before I went to jail. Right. And so there is something very poignant to me about the sun setting, because his name is literally Ray, a ray of sun, the sun setting, because he's a sun, the sun setting at this very dark part of my life. And then I'm a birth parent, and that young person who was born, her parents named her Dark Beautiful Garden. Right. That's that the sun set and then the sun rose. And that was a cycle in life. And my brain was just kind of like, oh man, I have to write about this. And I'm not done writing about it. I'm going to keep writing about it until I'm done writing about it. But there's something that was in my life that I was able to make those connections. So sometimes it's as simple as seeing, what are the patterns in your daily life? What are the patterns in your family? Like what keeps happening over and over again? And how does that pattern translate to on the page? Right. Because I guess, I don't know what kind of learning you call this. It's not just visual, but I'm looking for patterns all the time. This is 3 panels. That's a tercet. If I wanted to write this into a poem, right? If I have a bookshelf, I might just take all of the titles or one of the words from each of the books and see what patterns are showing up. I look for patterns in the natural world. I look for patterns in my community. A word that's been coming up for me a lot lately has been, what is it? I think it's light. Just the word light has been coming up for me a lot. Everywhere I go, people keep saying it. The number 1111 keeps popping up. So it would make sense for me to like literally write an 11-line poem just to see what happens. Maybe I'll mirror it and make it 2 11-line stanzas. And what is the spiritual meaning behind 1111, all that fun stuff. I might go into those depths, but looking for patterns in everyday life and trying to interpret that into a poem. I like challenges, and I like those types of prompts versus like write down your darkest memory from childhood and paint that on the picture. You know, we'll get there. If you spend enough time with your poems, you'll get there. I'm trying to learn how to be patient right now because I'm writing very large poems that span many pages. And, but they have to do that because I'm talking about the way the land looks, the how to burn the fields and bring back the crops. I'm talking about thousands of miles and all the things that happen in those thousands of miles. And you have long expanses where there's nothing, and you have tons of like huge cities like El Paso, which is huge, and all these large places that have all these people, and then all this nothingness, and then all these animals you'll run into and all these plants. If I'm trying to make a picture of the land with words, it's going to be large. It's going to be very expansive. And so, you know, I am constantly just, I think the more I talk about it, I think of it as translation, right? I'm translating policy into a language that other people can understand. Hopefully I'm translating the way I see the world into poems so that I can hopefully make sense to others. I'm trying to connect with my readers. There's a phrase I put on my website about the moment for me that when my fiance died, I lost color. The world was very dim to me at that point in time. And I didn't realize how dim it was until I woke up one morning and suddenly the bush outside was green, very, very green. And I was like, has it always been that green? I've been living here for a long time. Has it always been that green? And I started looking around. I was like, man, everything is beautiful. And what I tell people is like, that's when I knew I was pregnant. Because I looked at the world and suddenly all the color was coming back. I was like, something's wrong. Something's different. I don't know what's going on, but it was not like this before, and something is happening. And of course I was. But even those kinds of moments, right? I'm trying to translate to you what it means to have no color and now have all this sudden color. What does that feel like? What does that smell like? What does that do to your soul? What does that do to your mind and the way that you'll approach everything else in life? All those kinds of moments. I do tend to, on the practical side, I am a chaotic writer. I have a practice of ordering 2 Red Bulls, 2 breakfast tacos, and a pack of cigarettes because I'm trying to quit smoking, but we're not there yet. And when I have that meal, that very college student meal, that's when I know that we're writing. And so that's right now I have my coffee and I have my water and a banana, and that's the symbol to my body. Hey, we're about to go ahead and write. After I get off with you guys, I'll probably hop into some writing. I absolutely love the editing process. I cannot overemphasize that. You'll write down a great idea and it'll sound amazing. But if you spend some time with it and edit it and do some research on what does this word really mean? That will add depth to whatever you're working on. That will add dimensions to it. What I learned with working on A Body of Wild Light, the title, the word flame goes back to the Latin flagre, which also means black. Yeah, the lineage of it. So like the actual word black and flame are very connected, and learning that lineage, I was like, oh my God, brain exploded. And so those are things that you can learn if you spend some time. My favorite book in the whole wide world is this guy. Oh, you can't see that.
Oxford American, yeah.
Thank you. That's my favorite book in the whole wide world, is what words stand in for other words and how can I make those stronger, and how can I be more specific about what imagery I want to build on. 2 books I do want to recommend right now, because I made a post about craft books, and I recommended a number of craft books that are primarily written by white cis males, and we are in a chapter in our lives where we don't have to do that no more. I'm not saying that their suggestions aren't worthy. I'm just saying they're not the only ones that exist. And sometimes they're not even relevant to us. And so here's one that I want to recommend, which is the Anti-Racist Writing Workshop, How to Decolonize the Creative Classroom by Felicia Rose Chavez. You want to get into that there. And then Craft in the Real World, Rethinking Fiction Writing and Workshops, Matthew Salisis. I want to note that even though this is talking about fiction, it's talking about writing. So don't like read outside of your genre if you can. I'm gonna recommend Sister Outsider because the specifically I want to note the essay that drove me to Sister Outsider in particular, the uses of the erotic is power. When we're talking about writing that has a deep impact on the community and that has an impact on others, we are talking about expressing ideas that have longevity or that have meaning that can transform the way we live our lives. And so if you can understand how that can be found in some of these essays, then you'll be able to find more depth in your own work. Yeah, I think that about covers it. I write until I'm a better writer at night than I am during the day. I literally will do anything but writing for many hours, and then I'll be like, it's 2 a.m. time to write. So yeah.
Thank you for those suggestions. I've put them in the chat, and thanks to Shantika for the assist there with the author of the second book that I couldn't remember. And I would say too, if you haven't read Sister Outsider, like please hasten. If you're not a writer, just for your life, like Audre Lorde just tells us what we need to be, basically. So
like I was embracing that erotic. I was like, oh my God, that makes so much sense.
Yeah. Yes. Well, thank you so much again, Faylita. I am just so grateful for what you shared with us today. Thanks to Laura for connecting us to you. Man, I'm just beside myself. But I do want to say again, let me get my little script. I'm very type A, so I have to have notes all the time. But I just want to thank again our board, Dr. Elamar Wilson, Elena Stefanescu, Laura Secord, Monique Jones, and Shantika Curry. I want to thank PEN America and specifically the Birmingham chapter again. And I want to thank all of you for attending with us today, whether you're here on Zoom, on Facebook, or you're watching after the fact. Wherever you are, thank you for joining us. We hope to see you at our next event, which will be Tuesday in just a couple of days, Tuesday, April 6th at 7 p.m. Central Time. We have Poets in Conversation with Kalisa Ray and Rachel Eliza Griffiths. Registration is available at our website, which is www.magiccitypoetryfestival.org. And that will also stream to Facebook as well. Make sure to get HoodWitch. Everybody just concentrate on this new book of Faylita's getting out there because we're all ready for it. Need it. That essay I will be thinking about for weeks, maybe the whole year. I don't know. It's just, I'm still in it, honestly. So yes, thank you so much. Laura, do you have any final words before we?
No, I am so moved. This was so special. I send great love to you, Faylita, and great wishes for more success and getting those works out. And I just thank the Magic City Poetry Festival and the magic of Zoom for being able to bring us all together. Mwah.
Yes, thank you guys so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Yes. All right, well, everybody have a great rest of your day, great weekend. Happy Easter if you celebrate, happy Sunday if you don't celebrate Easter, happy every day. And we'll see y'all next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.